Everyone laughed when he walked out of prison with nothing but scars and shame until he lifted a car with one hand, melted a steel gate with his breath, and whispered a word that shattered windows for blocks. What they didn't know was that his pain had unlocked something beyond humans, something divine. Asterisk. Subscribe for more epic tales of power rising from pain. Asterisk. Fresh out of prison and treated like trash. The poor boy named Zayan shuffled down the cracked sidewalk of his forgotten town, wearing a prison-issued jacket and the weight of society's scorn like a curse tattooed into his soul, his eyes dull, haunted and hollow until a truck full of teenagers sped by and one hurled a bottle at his back yelling, "Rotten hell, freak, whoa." And Zayan stumbled forward, not from pain, but from the sudden surge of heat in his chest that burned like a star imploding. The bottle shattered against the wall, but Zayan didn't turn back. He just kept walking, feeling something inside him humming like an awakened engine, something he hadn't felt in the 12 long years behind bars, something monstrous and magnificent. No one had ever asked why he was imprisoned. No one cared that he was framed for a crime committed by the mayor's Suna, brutal murder at a political rally that sent shockwaves through the city, and when the cops found Zayan near the scene, bloody from a fall and dazed from a seizure, they didn't investigate, they just locked him up. Buried him under silence and steel and stories written by liars. His own mother died of grief. His father drank himself into madness. And the girl he loved moved across the world and erased his name from her lips. But the rage didn't kill Zayan. It carved him, reshaped him, whispered to him in dreams where he saw himself surrounded by fire, flying over cities, roaring like thunder, and waking up with burn marks on his sheets and light bulbs flickering whenever he screamed. They tested him in prison's secret government types with cold eyes and needle-thin machines, whispering about activation thresholds and primordial anomalies. And when Zayan bit one of their ears off in a rage, they left him alone. Afraid but fascinated, but on the day he was released, they were nowhere in sight. And all he had was a single note in his shoe. They're coming, run. No name, no signature, just panic folded into paper. And as Zayan wandered through the alleys, the glares and spit and slurs from strangers didn't sting him anymore. They bounced off him like raindrops off stone, 'cause something inside was changing, evolving. It began the night he tried to sleep under a bridge and a group of drunk businessmen thought he was a junkie and tried to light his cardboard shelter on fire for laughs. He screamed as they poured the alcohol, but it wasn't a scream of fear. It was raw, primal fury, and as his voice tore through the night, the flames bent backwards, wrapped around his body like a dragon of heat, and exploded outwards, sending the men flying into the riverbank unconscious, their skins singed but alive. Zayan stood in the middle of the ash, heart pounding, eyes glowing faintly. And for the first time, he wasn't afraid. He was curious. And when he looked at his hands, they were smoking, pulsing with something ancient. The next day, he was on every news station. "Ex-con destroys city block," they screamed. But the footage showed something else. A boy untouched by fire, walking through smoke with quiet fury, and the world started whispering. Some said he was a freak accident of evolution. Others said he was a government weapon gone rogue. But a rare few, said he was a prophecy reborn. It's hunted now, Zayan fled into the underground, hiding in forgotten tunnels with the other cast-offs of society, runaways, addicts, old fighters who saw things during wartime they never spoke of, and they saw the light in him, the raw, unshaped godhood boiling beneath his broken surface. And they trained him not with books, but with pain, sweat, vision quests, and fights against men twice his size and thrice his hate. And all the while, Zayan learned to control the fire, to shape the heat, to call wind and silence with thought, and once in a moment of near death, to turn his blood to lightning. He wasn't human anymore. Or maybe he was more human than anyone else, a soul forged in cruelty and carved by injustice. And when the secret agency finally found him, masked and armed with pulse rifles, he didn't run. He walked into their trap, surrounded by 50 men in a steel dome in the desert, and when they gave him a final chance to surrender, he smiled and said, "I already died once and unleashed hell." The footage never aired, but survivors few and trembling spoke of molten guns, bullets, turned to butterflies midair, and a boy floating 10 feet off the ground, eyes like twin stars collapsing inward. He vanished after that, like smoke and wind. But stories exploded, rumors of a boy seen healing a dying child in Morocco, of an entire village in Nepal spared from an avalanche by a whisper, of warlords in the Congo who woke up screaming after. Dreams of fire only to find their weapons melted, and the world started to believe, not fear. Governments denied his existence, but underground forums called him Ashburn. Cults began forming around his image, painting murals of his prison photo with halos and fire. Zayan, meanwhile, was on a journey of his own, not for vengeance, but for purpose. And the final twist came when he returned to the city that had destroyed him, not to burn it down, but to confront the real killer, the mayor's son, now a congressman and candidate for national office, preaching reform while hiding skeletons soaked in blood. Zayan walked into his rally uninvited, and the cameras caught it live. 1 second, a man bragging about second chances. The next, the crowd frozen as a hooded figure floated above the stage, lightning crackling at his fingertips. And when the congressman tried to run, Zayan spoke one word, confess, and the man fell to his knees screaming. Not from pain, but from memory, the guilt clawing out of his throat like smoke. He confessed everything on live TV, names, dates, deals, death sand. The world erupted. Zayan didn't wait for applause. He vanished again, leaving only scorched grass and stunned silence. And to this day, no one knows where he went, only that whenever injustice begins to rot a place from the inside, people hear whispers, see flickers of fire in the sky, and feel a presence watching, waiting, judging, not to punish, but to remind the world that even from the filth of prison and the ashes of cruelty, something divine can rise. And it doesn't come to beg for forgiveness, it comes to change everything. Asterisk.